Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB bikini pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today, we are hearing from 22-year-old business owner of Pro Body Sports Therapy in Denver, who started her journey at 170 pounds and 37% body fat. And she decided to make some changes and did her first competition in 2017, then turned pro 1 year later. She is a wife, puppy mom, online coach, fitness model, and her name is Jimi Marley. So welcome to the show. How are you doing?
I am doing so well. That is always my favorite part of every episode. You do so amazing at that.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I really appreciate that. I try. So it's always cool too when like the people who come on actually listen to the show, which I'm learning is like more than I thought, but also it's nice. It kind of takes some pressure off of me too.
Yes, it does. And I think it's so cool to hear that and put it into that perspective, because it's easy to like write down everything, but once you say it, I'm like, wow, that's me. You're talking about me.
Yeah, so true. I feel the same way whenever I get introduced on like a show or on stages, or like if I'm speaking somewhere is what I'm trying to say. Like when they do the intro, I'm like, shoot. Or one time I was talking to someone and they had to remind me of other things that I'm normally introduced as, because I was like, I don't know, like I'm not, but it's like a resume, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, as
Yep.
you know, I gotta ask, what is something you do or a ritual you have or think about right before you step on stage?
So I really thought about this because I obviously listen to the podcast. So I was like, well, what do I do? And I think something that I do every single time is I do just sit there in the moment. I soak it all in. I don't want it to pass by too fast, but I always pray right before I go on stage. And I just pray that I will be calm, I won't be nervous. And then I always end up praying that I will be happy with my placing no matter what it is. I pray that I will believe that it was completely fair and it was completely deserved, whether it's first place or it is dead last. I just want that comfort of knowing, whatever my placing is, you either need to work harder or you worked hard enough, or no matter what it is. So that's something that I always say right before I hit the stage. But yeah, and the biggest thing is really just soaking it all in and just being so happy. I think my first show, there was just a lot of nerves, and I sat there just being so nervous and watching everybody else and what are they doing, and should I do that too, and what about rice cakes and this and that. And so since that day I just was like, no, like I know what I'm doing. I put in the work to be here, so I'm just going to be so happy and not let anything get in the way of that.
I can relate to that too. Like for a show, looking around, like, what are all these people doing? Like, how do they
Yeah.
know what to do? Yeah, totally relate to that. And then when you find like your groove, it's like, okay, awesome. And
Yes, it's so much more relieving and relaxing backstage when you're just like, all right, I already ate my 2 rice cakes. It doesn't matter, what Sally next to me is putting down, because
yeah.
I know what I'm doing.
Sally like offers you some Skittles. You're like, my coach said no Skittles today. Can't do that.
Yes, exactly.
So you were actually going to be stepping on stage soon, but decided recently to pull out of the show. And I think this is a topic that's actually under discussed, as many girls really carry pride on their shoulder. We're competitive. And so sometimes we don't want to
Yes.
talk about, actually having to pull out of a show or giving ourselves more time. But for you, your physical and mental health have led you to make that decision. So can you just let us know, like, what made you realize it wasn't worth that push?
Honestly, I think the biggest thing is I prepped for nationals in Miami. That's when I received my pro card. And since then, I've just compared. I mean, I've only done one pro show, but I've just been comparing my other shows to that prep because I do feel like it was so flawless. I felt like my peak was perfect and I came in super conditioned, super lean. And so when I'm like working as hard as I am and actually even harder than what I did for that prep and it's just not coming together, I have to kind of sit back and be like, all right, so if I was this lean at this point and this is how I looked and I'm not even close to that right now, I just don't think I'm going to come in my best. And it really does suck, especially because I was posting about it and it is here in Denver in my hometown. So it was kind of one that I was expected to do in a sense, or more so that I just felt like I needed to do it to represent. But, looking in the mirror and looking at check-ins and my coach is getting nervous and I'm getting nervous and I'm just like, it's just not coming together. And I refuse to step on stage, any stage, without looking my best. And that's kind of the point it got to is we were already such low calories and high cardio and there wasn't really a whole lot more that we could have done. And yeah, like I said, I just was not going to be my best. And so I was like, you know what? I would rather suffer from, feeling a little bit of like discouragement of saying, no, I'm not going to do it, even though I said I was, than step on stage and know that I did not, make the improvements that I was supposed to make. And that I did not come in my absolute best.
Totally. Sometimes I'm like, this could also be that moment that you look back on years from now and be like, oh, that was the turning point for me. Like, that's when I really honored what I needed from myself. And now I'm coming back way better than I expected versus what if you had done
Exactly.
that and then it wasn't good.
Well, it's kind of funny because this has happened before. I did a show in Idaho last year, and then I had planned on going to USA and, to try and get my pro card. And it was kind of the same thing. We were already like very low calories, high cardio, and things just weren't working. I, could not stay on track with my diet, and it just was not working. So I was like, you know what, whatever, we're not going to do it. And then that's when I took a little bit of an off season and then started prep for nationals. And then that's when I got my pro card. So I have to tell myself, like, so much good came from that. And who knows what would have happened at USA's, but part of me just feels like it wouldn't have been my best. It would have been, a lot of money spent and, potentially not have even gotten my pro card versus waiting, taking that time off, and then, making the trip to Miami and receiving my pro card there. So I always remind myself of that, of, you know what, you've done this before, but so much good came from it.
I love that. And so what are you doing now that you've decided to pull back?
So now we're just going into an off season. I really have not had a solid off season since I've started competing. I do really long preps just because I do like to sit heavier, or not necessarily I do, but my body likes to sit heavier with, a good amount of body fat. So I like to, take really long preps. So right now we're just going into a solid off season to make the improvements. I have a super busy summer with like weddings. My best friend's getting married. So I'm just going to enjoy the rest of the year. And then I have plans of just hitting it hard towards the end of the year and coming back January and, competing as much as I possibly can.
Girl, that is literally same. Like for me too. I want to enjoy this summer, like finish this year, just like build for a long amount of time, like take just as much time off that I did competing and then come back really strong next year, like regardless of the expectations I had on myself. And also like knowing like even that could change. Like you never know what could happen. So yeah. I think that's cool. I'm like, oh, that's a great plan. Wait, I sound so familiar. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's what's right for you right now, and that's cool. And like you said, like there's also that mental aspect. If you had done it and not felt great, then there's really no fulfillment in that. And considering what you do right before on stage, like being calm and happy and knowing that whatever the outcome is, it was the right outcome. I think it always feels much better knowing that if you had given everything and done it when it made sense. So you've aside from obviously the competing side of this, which we're going to get back into a lot more stuff on competing, but I do want to get into some of the experiences you've had just really quick. And, you've had an incredible journey starting at 37% body fat, 170 pounds. Not that this is necessarily bad for people listening, but, you've come a long way. So what inspired you to change your ways, and what were some of the first commitments you made to actually start changing?
So, right out of high school was when I, gained my freshman 20 or whatever it is, my first year of college. I gained a lot of weight really fast. And high school was brutal my senior year. Girls were not nice. I was called fat constantly. And so I already had this body image that I was huge and disgusting and this and that. And I already had so many insecurities and low self-esteem. So once I moved out of state and started going to school, I was like, okay, I have got to lose this weight. So I started doing everything wrong. I was doing hours of cardio. I had my calories set to 900, and I had a goal of eating under 1,000 calories every day. Of course, that does not work. So I would try really hard, and then I would binge eat all night long when I got off work, or I would stop at Taco Bell on the way home, and it just was an endless cycle, and I was actually gaining more weight. So that was what actually got me to 170 pounds because I was about 160 and then gained an extra 10 pounds trying to lose the weight. So then I met my husband, my now husband, who obviously was just a friend at the time. And he was in school for exercise physiology. And I kind of, he looked so good. He was super muscular and he was always lean. And I was telling him like, oh, I'm trying to lose weight and this is what I'm doing. And he was like, girl, no, you need to eat. You're starving yourself. And so he kind of started explaining weightlifting and this and that, and was really helping me along, and even coming to visit me just so he can like show me how to weightlift. And that was really what started it for me. Once I had the knowledge of, what your body needs and the fuel that it takes to burn fat, it kind of just took off from there. I ended up losing my first like 20 pounds. And then I had my Pinterest board where I was always pinning meals, and I was always looking at these bodies that I wanted to have. And it always circled back to competitors. And I didn't really know what that was, but they had sparkly bikinis and I loved it. So, and then my husband, he explained to me what that was. And I was like, that is so up my alley. I have always been competitive, and I have to have an end goal, and I have to have something to work towards. And that's like really what drives me and motivates me. And originally it was, the horrible comments and the insecurities. And I decided, okay, I don't want to feel this way anymore. And so that was what really started it. And then it was, okay, I want to have this much muscle and look like this. So I'm going to work even harder. So yeah, it was just like little goals kind of along the way of, I want to feel different. I want to look different. I want to step on stage just for fun. And now we're here. So
and now you're a pro. That's awesome. So you mentioned that during that time frame of initially trying to lose weight, you fell into binging and purging patterns. And was this mostly prominent during that time only, or was this also happening throughout high school?
So actually, this really just happened my freshman year of college. I guess I didn't necessarily notice the weight gain in high school. I know that it happened pretty fast, but I have always been a pretty confident person. I was pretty confident in high school. And it wasn't until towards the end of senior year that people were like commenting on my weight. And then that, I guess, kind of opened my eyes. And then I was like, oh, maybe this is a problem. Like, I didn't think it was before. I was just enjoying life and, having fun. But wow, okay, if this is a problem, then I have to do something about it. So it really didn't start until, the short period of time of graduating high school, moving, and then, meeting my husband, who was like, well, if you want to lose weight, it's not going to happen like that.
Totally. And do you ever notice those patterns come up for you anymore, or was it pretty like now you're just on track with how you are?
Oh, I most definitely struggle. I have
Mm-hmm.
always struggled. I am such a foodie, and I know every competitor is. Um, but yeah, it was really hard being so restrictive on prep and then coming off of it, and especially my first one. And every single show has been better and better and better. But my first compared to now, my first one, I, completely gained like 20 something pounds back just because I didn't have a healthy relationship with food, I would say, because initially the whole reason I wanted to compete was for the body. It wasn't necessarily, for health benefits or to challenge myself. It was because I wanted that body and I didn't want to be quote unquote fat anymore. And that's like what I would tell myself. And so, yeah, I completely binged after my first show and after my second show. And then, like I said, it's gotten better and better because now it's more of a lifestyle and less of like, okay, I just want to have abs for a week and then I'll
Mm-hmm.
go back to eating normal. So now it's, a mind shift, switch to food is fuel and it's not to just get you the body that you want. But I do still have to fight the urge all the time. And even the day that I decided that I was not going to be ready for this show, the first thing I did was go and eat a pizza and, I had some ice cream and all these things that I've been craving for so long. And I probably ate way too much of it because I still, had my big turtle shell belly and I felt completely nauseous from it. But it's definitely better, but it is something that I have to like consciously think about.
Yeah, I totally hear you on that. I think that anyone who's been through that will discover that it's not something that just like poof is and it's gone. I get girls who
Yeah.
come to me for like the post show program I have or for the food journaling program that I have, and a lot of them will say like, "Oh, I just can't wait to get rid of this." And I'm like, "If I could get rid of it for you, that would be a miracle." Like that would be so amazing, and I would question if there was really
Hmm.
a deeper problem at all ever, because it seems like so much of this it it is a constant choice. A lot of people, even in eating disorder recovery, will tell you like you never really come out of recovery, right? You're just always
Hmm.
like recovering. And there's a few different ways we can look at this, right? Like from one perspective, it's okay, well, I don't want to say I'm always struggling with it because then I'm always going to struggle with it, right? Which is true. But then there's also that other
Yep.
perspective of, well, we have to recognize that this is a pattern that shows up in our life, and we have to be consciously aware of it enough to know that when it comes up, we'll have XYZ tools or mindset shifts or habits to go to as a way to combat that sabotage.
Exactly. Yeah. And those are all things that I've kind of learned along the way because everybody is different. Every eating disorder is different. There's different triggers and, this and that. And so that is one thing that I'm very focused on this off season because, like I said, off seasons are usually when I'm like, oh, I can eat whatever I want. And so I'm trying, I'm keeping that mindset of you're taking this off season because you need it. You're not taking it because you miss food. You're taking it because you need to make improvements. And you have so much going on this summer of like, posing clinics and photo shoots, and you still need to keep it together and look like you are this fitness model that you claim to be. And so that's like another motivator for me too.
Yeah, the identity of it. Like, okay, this keeps me like in alignment with who I want to be, who I am, and the person I've worked hard to become.
Yep, a lifestyle.
Yeah. So you mentioned that working through that, there were a lot of mind shifts that came up for you. And then you also said you haven't really taken an officially long like off season in a while. So but you did become a pro like within a year of your first show. So I'm just curious, like, what do you think attributed to your consistent success and growth over that time period?
Good question. I don't know. I was just hungry for it. I wanted it more than anything else. Once I really thought that once the first time I stepped on stage, I was like, oh, I'm just doing this for fun and it'll be cool and check it off the list. And my first show, I placed second. And that could not have been more motivating because I was like, well, second is cool, but how does first place feel? I'm so close. I can almost taste it. So how does that feel? And I just took that momentum and I ran with it on to the next show where I took the overall, which was an even more amazing feeling. And I mean, we kind of just knew like, okay, like let's keep running with it. And if you're going to get a second to an overall, well, let's just see how you'll do at nationals. And I really, like I said, I just took that momentum and I kept running with it. Everyone would ask me like, well, how do you eat like that all the time? And how do you stay motivated? And I'm like, because I want to win. I want to win so bad and so competitive. And I love winning. And that really was what was driving me. And then going to nationals, receiving my pro card, it was kind of the same thing of, okay, well, let's keep this momentum up. And, you know, my feedback was, I didn't really need to make a whole lot of changes. My feedback was, you look great. Be careful not to put on more muscle. Go step on a pro stage. All right, Sandy, well, that's what we're going to do then. So going from receiving my pro card, I was like, all right, well, what's the first pro show I can do? And like I said, yeah, just keeping up the momentum. And then to here we are now, I'm like, whew, I'm tired. I'm burnt out. Like I haven't realized how long I've been kind of running with it and kind of doing, you know, shows back to back. I mean, I know there's women out there who do shows almost every week or every month, but I just felt like for me personally, and for, like I said, how my body typically sits with more body fat on it, it was a lot on my body and on my mind and being in prep for so long. So that's where I'm at now. Is it's like, okay, I achieved everything that I wanted to in like a year. So now I can kind of breathe and take a step back. And now I did get feedback to bring in a fuller upper body and like more shoulders. So I'm like, okay, now that I have feedback that I need to work on, I'm going to take time off and work on it.
Yeah, and that was kind of what I was curious about with you, because when I look at like your transformation photos over that time period that you've had from like your first show to like your pro debut, like you've just come a really long way. So what are some things that you did throughout that long period of time? Because obviously you're using momentum, you're hungry for it, you want to win, you had the drive in you, but was there anything you did that helped you to create that sustainable shape that you continue to build upon or continue to chip away at?
I just love lifting. I can't remember the last time I took a week off or even 3 consecutive days, which isn't anything to brag about. I know rest is so much needed, but I love lifting, and I would be in the gym lifting as heavy as I possibly could. And, you know, even times when my feedback was to not grow anymore, my biggest struggle was to lower the weight and do a little bit of higher reps. Like that was hard for me because I love building. But yeah, I mean, besides that, it really was just a lot of food and a lot of heavy lifting, little, you know, I would take cardio out and just focus on lifting. And yeah, I never took any time off, no vacations or anything like that. I mean, I remember my husband and I going on a cruise, and we were so excited that they had a gym, and we would go in there every day and we would lift on our cruise. And some people think that's crazy, and they're like, well, why don't you just enjoy your cruise and rest? And it's like, we love it so much that that's what we want to do on our vacation. But yeah, I really have not taken any time off from the gym.
Yeah.
And super heavy weights.
That's so cool. I love that actually. And it shows that obviously there's a passion there for you. Like this is a real lifestyle. And you mentioned that this is like even when you were told not to build, you struggled with that. And I know recently you made a post about how like the whole wellness division thing came out, and I'm curious what you think about the wellness division and yeah, just your thoughts on that.
I think it's amazing. I already have so many people like, "Oh, this was built for you," and I'm like, "Oh my goodness." Um, I don't, I don't know. I don't know if. I mean, I think it's amazing. I think I would have to put on more size, which right now I don't necessarily think I want to do. I know. Like I said, I know it's a struggle for me to not lift heavy, but it's just the feeling of being strong, not necessarily the feeling of growing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I just like being strong.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't know if I'm gonna want to take a longer off season and put on a bunch of size for wellness. I mean, I know that there's women that put on size so easily. I'm one of them. Like I said, I'm 22 years old and I'm being told don't get much bigger, and I'm like, what do you mean? Like I feel like this just happened overnight for me. Like I just got so big. But I don't know. Maybe in the future, if I get told that I'm too big for bikini, then I'm gonna bump up to wellness and grow my legs even more and see how it goes.
Yeah, it's so wild. Like the wellness division, obviously they don't have all the parameters out yet, like officially, but from the girls who are already competing in, I'm like, dang, like that takes a lot of muscle. Like
Yes,
I feel
their
like
legs are insane. They're amazing.
yeah, it's beautiful. It's really amazing. I'm just like, oh wow, I can't
Yes.
imagine. There's also a lot of people saying like, oh, I'm gonna bump up to wellness division because I have big legs. But it's like, now you have big legs, but you don't have like muscular, like
Yes.
massive legs, and they're
Yes. See, and I'm to the point where I have to like be careful and hide my legs
yeah.
in bikini. So and like maybe slim them down. And I can't remember the last time I actually worked quad specifically. I mean, it's all glute and hamstring work, but yeah, if I'm already trying to hide my quads in bikini, I'm like, well, maybe I won't have to hide them in wellness.
Yeah, that's true. So, like you said, like this is something that felt like it was almost overnight for you. And a lot of this progression has been like pretty quick as well, but obviously you had the fire lit in you, which helped a lot. So, if you could go back and talk to like the amateur version of you, what would you have told her about getting into this sport?
Um, I would have just told her, number one, quit doubting yourself, sister. That
Mm.
was my biggest thing is that is something I really, really struggle with is self-doubt. And um, I think I have self-sabotaged some preps because of that. I mean, this one in particular, just because of so much doubt. And so I think I would just tell myself, like, okay, you really, really need to believe in yourself because I did to an extent, but I just feel like it could have been more fun and exciting if I would have. I mean, you don't ever know what you're going to accomplish. You just work towards it anyways. But I feel like I could have been even better if I would have just really, really believed in myself and not doubted myself so much and took risks and done more shows because I, would have thought that I could have done a lot better. Um,
Mm.
but I don't know. I don't know what I would tell myself. I mean, I loved the whole journey and everything, but yeah, I would just say like really, really believe in yourself a lot sooner and learn that mindset is everything. I wish I would have known that a lot earlier on. And like I said, my first show, I did it for the physique. I didn't do it for really anything else. And I wish I could go back and be like, no, it's not about the body because you're going to lose that so quick, like I did. Um, so just kind of loving everything else about it versus, just loving the body.
Yeah, that's my slogan, build more than just a body.
Yes. And I love it.
Thank you. Yeah, so that kind of goes back to what you brought up before too, which was like back in high school, senior year specifically, you were being like bullied and called like fat and almost being given this identity of someone who is fat and out of shape. So, do
Hmm.
you ever experience like that image of you coming back or fears of that coming back?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
Um, because yeah, I've had off seasons where I've gained, in my opinion, too much. It was to a point where I was uncomfortable with how I was looking. And my entire personality changes when I reach that point. Because it's funny, because I mean, you can ask my husband, I am such a different person now than when he first met me. Because when he first met me, it was all insecurities. I had, low self esteem, and I was just bitter, and everything was like so snappy. Like, why are you looking at me? Is it because, you think I look horrible? Like, what do you want? Like, it was always just, um, there's just a lot of negativity, and it had everything to do with how I felt about myself. Um, I'm losing train of thought. What was the question?
Yeah, like if you ever fear going back to that.
Oh yes, yes. I I don't necessarily fear going back to how I look. It's just I fear going back to how I felt about myself, if that makes sense.
Mm. Yeah, it does. And you mentioned too, like mindset is a huge part of this. So are there certain things you do now to help you with the mindset aspect of the sport?
Yeah, I mean I listen to podcasts, I write, I have like 6 journals and they're all halfway filled out, but I take time to focus on um, working on my mindset. I'm not just
Mm.
going through the motions, but everything that I'm doing and like, training and cardio and eating and everything, it's like, well, how do I feel about that? That sounds super cliche, but
No, it's great.
I'm just very aware of how certain things make me feel. And um, like I said, it's not necessarily that I'm like afraid of gaining weight. I'm just afraid of disliking how I look. So I use that as motivation. So when I'm eating super clean, it's not like, oh, I'm eating this broccoli so I can have abs. No, I'm eating clean because I want to feel accomplished and proud of myself. And I want to feel good about how I look. But yeah, I just being super in tune and working on positive self talk and writing down, you know, if I have a bad day, writing down why I think I had a bad day. Was it because I binged? Was it because I didn't go to the gym? And then kind of, seeing the patterns of I dislike myself when I eat an entire box of donuts and don't go to the gym. I like myself when I, feel accomplished and I feel like I got a lot done today.
Hmm. Such great points, seriously. And yeah, I mean self-awareness is a huge deal. And I'm gonna say just for the listeners, like why I think that is so important that you're doing that. And it's something that I actually have the girls do who go through like the food journal and discovery program I have, because when we create awareness over everything that we're doing and that goes deeper than the surface level aspect of it, we actually develop an understanding again that goes beyond surface level for why we're doing it. So for example, if every time before you ate something, you asked yourself like what's the mental benefit, what's the physical benefit, and then how did it make me feel like after you've eaten it, like even if you just started with those 3 questions, not only are you going to think about everything before you put it in, like almost like it's like a barrier goes up, right? Like almost if you turned off your phone because you don't want to use it, you have to now turn on your phone to use it. So that's a barrier
Mm-hmm.
to get to your phone. So it's like, okay, if you have to ask yourself a question before you eat something, you're creating a barrier. You are essentially creating an awareness and you're creating a pattern around the food you're eating. And then like you said, it goes beyond, okay, I'm eating this to look a certain way, but I'm eating this because it's made me feel a certain way. And this weekend I was in San Diego and I was talking with the 2 people I went with, and something that came up was, sometimes we say no to food, not because it's unhealthy or healthy, but because of the feeling it'll evoke about ourselves within us. So
Mm-hmm.
like if you go to Cheesecake Factory, like the bread is so, so good. And, you know, on one hand, you could say I had some of that bread and I'm glad I did because I reminded myself that I have the freedom to choose and it doesn't impact me negatively. And it felt good to be able to also just have a piece and try it and be done. But you could also say, you know, I didn't have that bread and I feel really proud of myself because I knew my body wasn't hungry for it. I didn't really want it. It was just in front of me and I didn't make myself eat it. And for that reason, I'm really proud of myself and I feel more free, right? So we can have the same reason,
Yes, I love
you
that.
know, like
That's so
regardless of what
true.
you're
It's
doing.
it's exactly that of like I want to feel proud of myself, and it's more than just looking a certain way. But yeah, it's definitely that, and just being aware and wow, I feel really good today, and it's because I hit my macros, or I burned this many calories on the stairs, and it's just that self pride, and you kind of high five yourself at the end of the night, and that's really yeah, essentially why I do it.
Yeah, exactly. I remember I was being cheated on in a relationship a while back. And that was like what sparked it for me, like to really commit to myself because I was like, I can't expect other people to like not cheat on me or like go like be dishonest with me if I'm not being honest and not staying true to me as well. Like if I'm not loyal
Yes.
to my own goals or myself or my soul, I can't expect anybody to do that.
Mhm.
You know,
I
it
love
really
that.
goes deep. So, you know, something I wanted to bring up with you as well. There's a lot of bodybuilding documentaries that emphasize how competitors rely on sponsorships or benefit a lot from it. But you are not only a sponsored athlete, but you have also pursued your own passions with being a business owner at a young age. And I know personally, like we talked a little bit about before, like you get a lot of support for being a young business owner. But I'm curious for you, like what got you into having your own online coaching business as well as owning the Pro Body Sports Therapy Center?
I think the biggest thing was just that I wanted the freedom. I think that's everybody's goal. I know people are, working their dream jobs, but at the end of the day, I think a lot of people want the freedom of making their own schedule and, while doing what they love. And so that really was what it was for me. I went to school for massage therapy to specifically do sports massage and work with, bodybuilders and athletes with injuries and all that jazz. Um, and I had every single instructor telling me, like, no, you really need to work somewhere right out of school and build your clientele. Like, it'll be way too hard to start your own business because, no one's going to come to you. And I just had my mind so set on, I want to start from the ground up. I've always started from the ground up. And I want to make my own schedule. I want to have the flexibility because I need to spend hours in the gym and hours at the grocery store and meal prepping because this is my lifestyle. And I wanted something that's going to fit that lifestyle. And then with like online coaching, just sharing my passion. I mean, I have my business to make money. I don't coach people to make money. I do it to share my knowledge. I do it to work with other ladies in specific and work with their confidence because again, that was the biggest change in me was my confidence. And I do that because I love it. I love helping others. I mean, you resonate with that. I know you do. And yeah, but the massage was really just to do what I love and on my own terms. And then really just another challenge. And because I had instructors saying that I couldn't do it. And if you know me, you know that one thing you just don't do is say that I can't because I will always do the opposite.
Yeah, watch me. That kind of
Yes,
mentality.
that's
So
that is me.
what did you do then to like when you got out of school, did you just find a location? Like what was your process like? Because I'm sure there's people listening who are like, oh my gosh, I feel that way right now, or I was told that and now I am stuck here and I don't want to be. Like, what were some of the steps you took to just be like, yep, this is what I'm doing?
So it kind of fell in place, to be completely honest. I My friends introduced me to a little, kind of hole in the wall gym. They're a private owned gym, and we started working out there. It was, an awesome atmosphere, pretty low key, very serious lifters work out there. And one day I was just kind of talking to the owners, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to graduate massage school here within like 2 months. And they kind of asked what my plan was. And honestly, I didn't really have any plan. I just knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't have anything really lined up. And I already said, like, if I have to go work somewhere for a little bit until I figure it out, I'm completely open to that, but this is what I want to do. And they kind of were just like, well, that's funny because we have a room for rent and we have been really wanting to bring in a massage therapist. We've been looking and haven't found anybody. And I was like, well,
Oh my
show me
God.
the room. Let's see
Yeah.
it. And it pretty much fell in my lap, which I just got very, very lucky with that. And yeah, so that's where I'm at. I'm at the gym that I work out at, and I work on, athletes there. And then obviously it's open to the public as well. So I have people traveling to come see me. But yeah, it really was just luck.
Oh, that is awesome. That's like so crazy how sometimes the best things in life really just come from living, not like searching for
hmm
the answer or trying to like make a master plan, but literally just trusting that it's going to fall into place or, allowing it to unfold naturally. And that's what happened for you.
Yes, it really did.
You ever heard of a poopery?
Yes.
Okay. So there's a reason I'm bringing this up. I'm not just like, oh, hey. But anyway, like, I guess the thing that she had said, the woman who made it, she was like, I was in a yoga class and just like, she had a thought in her head. Like, I guess maybe she was going somewhere later. Like, someone's gonna maybe correct me on this story, but just get it for the message. Okay. So, like, I guess she like was thinking in her head, like, wow, like, imagine if you could go somewhere like when you have to go poop at someone's house, like you don't want to open the door, you don't want people to smell it. And so like what if you could spray something and then it wouldn't smell? And then it hit her and she had her idea, but it wasn't like she was like, I'm gonna think of a great business idea that's gonna give me the freedom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then like she allowed intuition to drive the rest of her business because it came from an intuitive place as well. And I think a lot of the best ideas, the best solutions, some of the best projects are born from that place of just, I'm living, I'm enjoying life, I'm outside, I'm in a yoga class, I'm in the gym talking to people I respect, and it just happens.
Yeah. That is so true. That really is how it is. I actually just heard a podcast that said you come up with the best ideas when you're not thinking. And so that's why I think we can all relate to this when you're in the shower and you're just washing your hair. And I feel like I have so many inventions just because of shower thoughts. Or, when I'm on a hike, when I go on like a morning run or go on a hike, I always come home and then I journal right after that because I have so many thoughts. And yeah, it's not because I'm sitting there at my desk like, okay, I need to brainstorm and I need to write down all these ideas. But yeah, that is so true. And I do feel like that's kind of how it came to me, where it was just like, you know what? If I have to work somewhere, I will. And if something else comes my way, great. And it just did. So
Yes, needing nothing attracts everything. And
yes.
it's also crazy too because like in our society, we're almost told like get your head down and go to work. But yet like the opposite seems to do a lot. I mean, obviously you can't not like make a plan and like do things and act on what you need to get done, but at the same time, like
hmm
if you don't allow yourself to rest, if you don't allow yourself to take time off or to go and see life outside of, maybe your cubicle or of the gym,
Yep.
or you don't actually
And
take
that's what
care of
I
those
see
things.
balance. That's what
Yes.
balance is to me.
Mm, absolutely. So are you creating balance by like incorporating more of those things in your life?
Yeah. I don't sit at my business all day, every day. I pop in and out when I have clients, or if I do feel like I need to like head down and get some work done, like paperwork and stuff, I will go sit in my office, but I like to be outside. I like to shop. I like to listen to podcasts and go on walks and hikes. And yeah, like that's really when I do my thinking. That's where ideas pop into my head. And that's kind of what I see as balance. I'm still in the gym, I'm still working out, but I'm not one of those people that, I'm either working out, doing cardio, or I'm working. I have a lot more variety.
Mm. I love that you've given yourself permission to do that as well. Like,
It's what works. It's just really, it's been what works for me.
yeah, that's awesome that you can recognize that and still say, yeah, that's what I need to do. That's what's best for me. Like, I don't need to follow the status quo. So, you know,
Hmm.
like aside from competing and business and everything we've been talking about, you've also had a really incredible life story. And when you were, and you're 22. So when you were younger and spent a lot of time in the hospital, you were fighting for your life. So can you tell us this story from your perspective?
Yeah. So I was 10 and I felt, you know, the kind of the same way I do now, where I don't feel like I'm 22. I feel like maybe I'm 33. And when I was 10 years old, I was 10 going on 20. And so I remember it all so perfectly. But super long story short, I just got sick. My mom took me to the doctor and they went in for an appendectomy. And when they opened me up, my entire abdominal cavity was full of gangrene and all my organs were gray. And so they rushed me into an emergency surgery and cut me from pubic to sternum and kind of just picked through. They, my hour surgery turned into a 6-hour surgery, and they, called my parents and were like, she's not going to make it. And again, long story short, after some fighting and string pulling, they ended up flight for lifing me to UCLA, and I was in the ICU there for an entire month. And yeah, the whole month that I was there, it was not a month of recovering. It was a month of, twists and turns and lefts and rights, and just so, like, one day I would, literally be on my deathbed, and I remember perfectly, like, telling my parents, hey, it's going to be okay without me. I love you guys at 10 years old.
I just got the chills.
Yeah. And then to the next day of, the doctor's talking about maybe letting me go home. And then the day after, my lung collapsed and, fluid in my lungs, and I couldn't breathe. And then, feeding tubes. And I didn't even get my feeding tube out until, 3 days until they released me from the hospital. So I didn't eat that whole time. But yeah, I just remember, you're forced to think like, okay, it's time. Like, I lived a good life, and I'm 10. So it's so crazy to even think that. But I know without a doubt that experience in my life was what made me who I am. I do think it aged me a few years. Everyone says they think I'm older than I am. You get that all the time too. But it forced me to, live without fear and to take chances and risks, because you really, really never know when, it'll be your last day. It brought my family so much closer. It brought, my friendships, everything so much closer, just because, it was so random. I literally had a cold. I went to the hospital because, I had some pain in my abdomen, but I was tough. And I thought it was because I was doing sit-ups, because I had abs at 10 years old. And I just thought I was a little bit sore. And, one day you're sick, and the next day the doctors are explaining to a 10-year-old that you're going to pass away. And so I forced the doctors to be honest with me. My parents always laugh about it because, they would do their whispering in the corner, and they'd come over with all these smiles, and they'd be like, all right, we're going to take your blood again for the 18th time today. And I would cry to my parents and I'm like, stop sugarcoating this. Like, tell me what's happening. I think I am old enough and I am big enough to know what's going on. So they were very, very honest with me. And, they pretty much just said, like, you're not getting better. Nothing, you're not getting better.
Mm.
But yeah, I think about that all the time, even to this day. I mean, 12 years later, and I'm like, I still think, like, life is short. It could be even shorter than you think. And, one day I was fine and then the next I wasn't. And so I'm going to do what I want and live, my best life, essentially.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's amazing. And I mean, you mentioned that this is something you think about still to this day and has taught you a lot of lessons. Do you think that it's given you a lot of, like you said, it's made you who you are. So like in what ways do you think it shows up and gives you like that appreciation and that strength and that, outlook on life that you have?
Like I said before, when, someone tells me I can't do something, I make sure it happens. And, I have 55 doctors saying I'm not going to make it and, telling my parents I'm not going to live. And I'm like, well, watch me live. I'm going to be just fine. And then to going on to tell me, okay, well, if she does live, she's not going to, be able to stand up straight because her, this and that, and just so many different things. And I ended up competing in a cheer competition just 6 months later. And just
Wow.
since then, it's just, I have a whole new drive, because I feel like, at 10, it would have been easy just to be like, all right, I'm tired and I am done with this fight and stop poking and prodding me every hour. At one point I did rip out all my monitors and my tubes and I ripped everything out and I was just done. But I mean, just my drive. I will do anything that anyone doubts me. I will come back stronger. I will push. I tell myself at 22 years old, you literally conquered death. You looked death in the eye. It was supposed to take you, and you pushed back and gave all you had. You can stick to a dang diet, and you can stick through an hour of cardio because you almost died. And I literally have to tell myself that. But yeah, I would really just say how stubborn I am and how driven and dedicated I am. I really think it stems from, I had to be that at 10 years old.
Mm. Yeah, you had no other choice. And I mean, well, you did, but you chose to go the
Yeah.
strong way. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, you faced a lot at at a young age, and the fact that you were able to overcome that and come out on top and now use that as such a positive fuel for your life is so cool and so inspiring. And I am really, really grateful that you shared that with all of us. So something I like to ask, as you know, is what is advice that you would give a newbie competitor, someone who hasn't competed but's thinking about competing, and then advice you'd give someone who is on the hunt for their pro card?
I would just say really, really stick with it and believe in yourself, because your body is capable of so much. Your mind is capable of even more. And don't sell yourself short. Don't let doubt and, discouragement take over, because, to this day, I have had preps and, experiences where self-sabotage and doubt really, ruined it. And I would just say really stick with it. If you're aspiring to get your pro card, don't stop. It doesn't always happen overnight. I do find myself very, very lucky that I did receive my pro card so fast. Um, but I wasn't expecting that to happen, because I do know that there's, some amazing, amazing pros out there that it took them 5, 6, maybe even 7 years to actually receive their pro card, and they are thriving on the pro stage. So, time does not matter. Keep showing up. If it doesn't happen the first time or the second time, keep showing up if that's something that you actually want.
I love that. I'm writing down notes. Seriously, I'm like, this is great advice. I always write it down. I think it's awesome. And I really appreciate you just sharing all of that, like I said, and opening up about so much too. And I feel like we covered a lot of great things that maybe definitely will inspire people into new action and valuing life even more. So I'd love for everybody to be able to tag you when they're listening, or to follow you, connect with you, work with you, all that jazz. So can you just let everybody know where they can find you, connect with you?
So Instagram, my Instagram handle is jimmar.ifbbpro. It's just the first three letters of my first and last name. And then I actually did start a YouTube channel, and I mean, I kind of just do it for fun. I'm not super
Totally
dedicated to
subscribing.
it yet. But it's been fun to, use that as a pastime of like editing and all that stuff. But just Jimi Marley on YouTube. I have a couple show day videos and kind of what to expect on there. But yeah, I mean, Instagram and YouTube.
That's awesome. So, everybody listening, I want to make sure that is in the show notes page of the podcast. So, that's always going to be on www.celestial.fit/podcast, along with all the notes that I've taken throughout the episode, the highlights, all that good stuff. So, also, a few times in this episode, some things were brought up, like the food journal discovery, the post show program, and then also the event that I'm hosting at the end of the year. So, if you guys are interested in that and you're listening to this and some of that resonated with you or spoke to you and you're curious about more information, I'd love if you just sent me a message on Instagram or connected with me on my website. And that's a really easy thing to do. You can just contact me there, and I'll be happy to see if it's a good fit for you and how we might be able to work together to make sure that you're making peace with food, your body, and your goals. And of course, the food journal program, the food journal discovery, doesn't really have a name, to be honest with you. It just helps a lot of people. And that's applicable regardless of where you're at in your journey, whether that's prep or the improvement season. It doesn't require you to change anything about your eating, unless of course it inspires you to. So with all of that being said, thank you so much, Jimi, for coming on and sharing so much.
Thank you.
Of course. And to everybody listening, hope you have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are